About some stuff about the Indians, and this is stuff that I knew, but it's all every time I read it, I get shocked by it. I read it, and I think in Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States first, but it's everywhere, and it's not, and it's Columbus did a thing that the Nazis did. He wrote stuff down, right? And so I mean,
that's a Nazi thing now to write things down.
if you take notes, you're a Nazi.
How did the people who are good enough to take notes get fucked like this?
Because Columbus was like a Nazi.
Okay, all right.
No, but here's the thing, like there was probably a time when you thought this too, that in this era of victimization and an eagerness to complain, that there was probably a time when people said, I can't believe we're honoring Columbus, how can we have a day off for Columbus? And there's some sure time in your life, and you're like, oh, shut up, we have Columbus because we have Columbus Day because we have Columbus Day. Shut it.
Yeah, like last year. Okay.
Yeah, here's the thing. There's no way we should be honoring this guy.
Oh, yeah. I know, but some myths are better left as myths.
Yeah, and we're going to break this one now.
Okay, all right.
Because here's some of the things that he wrote.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the Arawak men and women, naked, tawny, and full of wonder. This is, by the way, this is literally the online site of the People's History of the United States. So that's why it's familiar to me, because I've already read it in book form. Mm-hmm. So when Columbus and his sailors came ashore carrying swords, speaking oddly, the Arawaks Indians ran to greet them, brought them food, water, and gifts. He later wrote of this in his law, Columbus. They brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and hawk's bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. Nothing wrong so far.
So far, yeah.
They do not bear arms.
Okay.
They've never seen these people before, and they're like, we don't need guns. Let's just go greet these friends, right?
This is actually kind of reminds me of the earlier thing you explained, Louis C.K.'s theory on aliens. Like,
oh, right.
It's not going to be good news.
It's not going to be. You heard it. We heard it together.
That's right. Yeah. And so, just like this, the guys come in like, oh, aliens.
Right, aliens, right.
Okay, well, here's our gifts.
They do not bear arms. They do not know them, for I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want.
Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, the guy who would write that, you see where they're going. Let me go down
So
here.
Steve-O told me the story of conquistadors. I forget exactly which one it was and exactly where they are. Peru, with the Incas or the Mayas. I think it was the Incas. The guy brings them one by one. I mean, the way that they took control was unbelievable. I don't want to get into that whole long story. But basically, they speak to them in a language they don't understand and say, do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? The guy goes, whatever he says, right? In his own language. They're like, savage, cut his head off.
Cut his head off, right.
And they cut one head after another
Until people are like, yes.
No, they killed them all. Because they don't speak the same language. Okay?
Right.
Well, but the thing that drives me crazy is all the meanwhile calling them savages.
That's the thing. That's what's great. And that's right. So here's another thing. As soon as I arrived in the Indies on the first island which I found, I took some of the natives by force in order that they might learn and might give me information of whatever there is in these parts. So right off the bat, he's like, I just took some hostages.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they might tell me, even though they're going to have a tough time telling you, they don't speak your language, you don't speak theirs.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to understand the questions. So he goes, and then they find gold, and then he goes back to Spain, and Ferdinand and Isabella are like, okay, bring us gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, so they go to this island called...
you want to talk about slow trunks. Man, in order to convey that message, you have to go all the way back across the Atlantic. It's going to take literally years off your life.
Totally, yeah. But he wanted to go all these times because, of course, he got paid. Now, from his base in Haiti, Columbus sent expedition after expedition into the interior. They found no gold fields, but had to fill up the ships returning to Spain with some kind of dividend. 1495, they went on a great slave raid, rounded up 1,500 Arawak men, women, and children, put them in pens guarded by Spaniards and dogs. By the way, they turned dogs loose on these people all the time. Had dogs eat the people. Sometimes eating children in front of their parents. Then picked up the 500 best specimens to load onto the ships. Of those 500, 200 died en route. The rest arrived alive in Spain and were put up for sale by the archdeacon of the town, who reported that although the slaves were, quote, naked as the day they were born, they showed, quote, no more embarrassment than animals. Columbus later wrote, "Let us in the name of the Holy Trinity go on sending all the slaves that can be sold."
Oh, in the name of the Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity.
Oh, well then, okay, then it must have been.
Here's the problem. Too
worthwhile.
many of the slaves, Cenk, they died in captivity. And so Columbus, desperate to pay back dividends to those who had invested, had to make good his promise to fill the ships with gold. In the province of Sicao, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, on Haiti, where he and his men imagined huge gold fields to exist, they ordered all persons, not just men, all persons 14 years or older to collect a certain quantity of gold every 3 months. When they brought it, they were given copper tokens to hang around their necks. Like, okay, you met your quantity. Indians found without a copper token had their hands cut off, and then the hands were then tied behind their back. The hands were then tied in front of them, and then they would bleed to death.
Oh.
The Indians had been given an impossible task. The only gold around was bits of dust garnered from the streams, so they fled, were hunted down with dogs, and were killed. Trying to put together an army of resistance, the Arawaks faced Spaniards who had armor, muskets, swords, horses. When the Spaniards took prisoners, they hanged them or burned them to death. Among the Arawaks, mass suicides began. First they would poison themselves, because they were like, we can't live like this. Infants were killed to save them from the Spaniards. In 2 years, through murder, mutilation, or suicide, half of the 250,000 Indians on Haiti were dead in 2 years. 125,000. And then I could go on. There's all these things about like the systematic rape and the way they write about it. Like just oh, it's interesting. She resisted and she scratched my face, but I showed her what the business was, and we came to an agreement. Let's just say she had sex like a harlot.
Okay, again, I wanted to stop you before that last part. As I was going through Amsterdam, and this goes to what the Pope was talking about in the thing that's going to come out about climate change, I thought, look, I love Amsterdam. It's a lovely town, and I love Netherlands. But do we have to acknowledge, and I think maybe we do, that this was built on the backs of the southern continent, right? That Europe, through unbelievable treachery, stole the natural resources of the entire southern continent and built great, beautiful cities out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And beautiful, great, wonderful civilizations out of them that learned and that eventually did a renaissance and believed in education and did the Reformation and brought us the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and many wonderful things, right? But they did. They stole, they raped, they robbed, they killed.
That's right.
And so it's ugly. That's why we want to leave it as myth, because it's a tough thing to acknowledge. So thank you, Ben Mankiewicz, for forever ruining Columbus.
Last thing, this is not Columbus. This is Bartolome de las Casas, who was a young priest, participated in the conquest of Cuba. Again, he came later, looks about 50 years later than Cuba. Not even 50 years later than Columbus. He talks about women and he wrote extensively. Indians have no religion. They have no temples. In Book 2 of his History of the Indies, Las Casas...
Well, you see that the religion that the Europeans brought was so wonderful. It's weird that the savages didn't have a wonderful religion like that allowed them to rape, kill, murder, and maim hundreds of thousands of people at a time.
Marriage laws are non-existent. Women alike choose their mates and leave them as they please without offense, jealousy, or anger. Isn't that,
oh, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful.
Hey, listen, this was fun, but I'm finished. I'm going to go be with Larry.
Okay.
He's a brave. He's young.
Right.
Your brave days, let's be honest. They're behind you.
Wait, do I get Susan out of this deal?
I don't care.
Okay,
right.
So bad.
I don't care. It's really, you know what? Up to Susan. You take that up with her. So I love that part. They multiply in great abundance. Pregnant women work to the last minute, give birth almost painlessly. Up to the next day, they bathe in the river and are as clean and healthy as before giving birth. If they tire of their men, they give themselves abortions with herbs that force stillbirths, covering their shameful parts with leaves or cotton cloth. Although on the whole, Indian men and women look upon total nakedness with as much casualness as we look upon a man's head or at his hands. Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
It's weird that their wonderful religion of the Christians there led to shame. They're like, oh, isn't it so sad that they don't have any shame about their bodies?
Yeah, totally. Right.
Yeah.
I can't believe they don't have any shame. Yeah. But they don't care. In Book 2 of his History of the Indies, Las Casas, who at first urged replacing Indians with black slaves, thinking they were stronger and would survive, but later relented when he saw the effects on blacks, tells about the treatment of the Indians by the Spaniards. It is a unique account, deserves, Zinn says, to be quoted at length. It's not that long ago. Endless testimonies prove the mild and pacific temperament of the natives.
Mm-hmm.
They're mild and pacifists.
Mm-hmm.
God bless them. But our work was to exasperate, ravage, kill, mangle, and destroy. Small wonder then if they tried to kill one of us every now and then. The admiral, it is true, was blind as those who came after him, and he was so anxious to please the king that he committed irreparable crimes against the Indians.
The Admiral's Columbus.
Columbus, or who came after him. I don't know if he's
Okay.
still talking about Columbus there.
Right.
But he may well still be talking about Columbus.